Are we ready?
Who's starting?
Tom, you there? Casey?
I'm here.
Tom.
This is Casey. Can you hear us?
Yeah, we got you. We're just ready to start. Okay, we call a special meeting, special city council meeting of January 25th, 2024 at 6 p.m. to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ellison,
Here.
Tom Baylor,
Here.
Kathy Sherman. Here. Casey Kinsman,
Here.
Betty Rain. Here. Ann Schaefer. Here. Kristen Carpenter. Here. Ken Jones.
Here.
All of them.
Any objection to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda will be approved. Disclosure of conflicts of interest and ex parte communications. Hearing, so communications by participant visitors. Audience comments regarding agenda items. Anybody wants to say your piece?
Right here.
My name is John Sonder and I live at 140 Drive, out of mile 6.5 area. And I read the letter that Kevin and some of the emergency staff put in the packet, and I just want you to know that we currently at mile 6.5 have accurate, consistent, and predictable addresses for emergency responders. There's even houses on the right, even numbers on the right, odd numbers on the left. In standard form, 100, 110, 120, 130 on the right, 105, 150, 125 on the left. And I did look at the code in the packet here, and I just have a suggestion. This is just a suggestion. But this is on, let's see, page 13 in your board packet. And it's from pages 5 and 6 of the City of Cordova Road Addressing, Naming, and Signing Policy. And right now it says addresses shall be assigned such that even numbered addresses will be on the south or east side of the street as appropriate for the roadway. The north or west sides of the street shall be assigned odd numbered addresses. And I would just like to make a suggestion, because we do have consistent addresses out there. It would be easy to strike addresses on the, south and east, strike that and just put addresses will be on, even numbered addresses will be on one side of the street as appropriate for the roadway, and other sides of the street shall be assigned odd numbers. Just seems like a simple fix. What do I know? And, I discussed this with Chief Tremblay, I said, okay, so if we switch the addresses and put the odds on the other side and the evens on the, just switch them, is that going to make it easier for you folks to find us? And he said, probably not. Those were his words, probably not. And they didn't know that we had addresses out there, which I found astounding. But the addresses, if they use a plat when they come out our way, they put addresses we currently have on the plat by our names. That way, if someone does move and no one's aware of it, that address is still there. And that should be very simple to look at that plat and find us. I know there's a lot of people that are unhappy, and people will come talk to you guys, and it really bugs me. And they say they just don't feel like council listens to their concerns, and I just don't think you guys want people to feel that way. You represent us, and we voted for you, and we put our trust in you to do what's best for us. We don't need to change our addresses. For crying out loud, some of us do not need to. In looking at the code, they want to keep the Orca Road, which I think 99% of the people in Cordova call it Orca Road. New England County Road does not conform to your code. The code states there should not be more than 18 characters in an address. That address has 24, so that does not conform to your code. I don't think anybody wants to argue that everybody needs an address. And I know there's been people who live, well, Paul Trombley told me that he lives at 1.5 White Shed Road. Well, there's 3 houses there with that address. So great, they all 3 are going to have their own address. That's wonderful. But please leave the rest of us that have a consistent address, standardized addresses alone. Don't fix something that isn't broken. I spoke with, remember her name, the city manager in Petersburg. I have her letter, her email here. And I asked them, these folks, you know, do you have standard addresses, meaning that odd numbers are on one side and even on the other? Her answer was, we mostly have standard addresses. I talked to Paul Nyland in Valdez, and when I asked him in the beginning, he said, yes, we do. And he says, well, there's a few parts that don't. And I said, well, why haven't you had everyone, why doesn't everyone have a standard address? His comment was that emergency people could find the people that did not conform to the standard, and they felt that it was not necessary to disrupt people's lives and change their address. I know the people I've talked to that they said they're not going to change their address. Now, to me, that causes utter chaos and confusion. Our emergency personnel will be going to the wrong address when they give their old address, gives new ones. It's just going to be confusing. Some of us already have our addresses on our houses. Now, I looked at the code and mine does not meet code. I think my letters are 2 inches and I can't remember what code requires, but I'm willing to put a bigger address on my warehouse. But I'll tell you what, if you change our addresses, people are ticked. And I doubt very much that they'll be willing to listen and put their addresses, which is maybe irrational, but we feel like it's irrational to change our addresses. So, I just told, you know, we all need an address. We all realize that. Cordova has a mostly standardized system. There are some that aren't, and you're fixing that. I hope you amend the code. I am willing to post my address in larger numbers so that emergency people can find us. That just makes sense. If you keep our addresses like they are, people are going to be happy and they're going to be more apt to put their address up. Responders can add the addresses to the plat that they already use to easily find us, and it won't disrupt our lives. If you change the addresses, our lives are disrupted. Some may lose their insurance. Police are really concerned that they might not have insurance on their warehouse. It's hours and hours of time spent changing documents, etc. I know Doug Pettit was telling me when he orders supplies for his business, sometimes mile 6.5 works, sometimes box 130 works. And now he's going to have to throw another address in there to get his supplies. And I truly believe that responders are not going to have an easier time finding us if you switch the addresses across the street. It's just common sense. So I just, okay.
Just about.
Okay. Well, you tried to get rid of me.
No, that's why I let you go, because I would rather hear from you.
Okay, I just want to close with just one more sentence. I hope that you've listened to our heartfelt comments. I don't think it's unreasonable. We want to be good citizens. I just hope and pray that you will let us keep our city assigned, standardized, logical addresses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Audience comments. Ready to get that?
I'm not gonna go very long here because Joan has done quite a bit of research. You've had copies of all her letters that she's come up with. I agree with her 100%. And I just want to urge you to keep the addresses as they are. We may not be able to qualify for homeowners insurance and for took months and months to find an underwriter willing to cover us for our timber frame house because we're so far away from a manned fire. It's expensive and there really isn't anybody else out there who will cover it. If we cancel, we have to cancel and rewrite the policy. They may not cover us, and that worries me greatly, as well as Roy, who's not happy about it either. The simple solution that makes the most sense to me is just to keep it as it is. Have us post our numbers. Most of us have numbers out there, but like Joan said, they're kind of small, you know, away. But if you Google us, anybody with a smartphone goes right to our. It's not confusing to find. I congratulate you for coming up with the system, the E911 system. I'm trying to make it work here. I agree, every single person in Cordova needs an address and needs a verifiable. But 6.5 mile radius. Thanks for hearing us. Please, I wrote it down. We decide go for option number 4 and direct the city manager to disregard established addressing policy and have the addresses on Beck Drive and South 2nd Street revert to their previous addresses.
Chime in from my sister Diana, Joan Paul, since you're not here.
You can speak right into the mic, guys. On the phone.
Okay, they're also at a 6 month. If they have to change their address, their insurance is gonna drop from their house. Because right now they're grandfathered in. They won't be grandfathered in. So their insurance for their warehouse is gone, even though it's sitting right next to their house. I'm on South 2nd Street and I'm gonna go with option number 6. Leave the addresses as is. That's way too many addresses to put in space with 4 houses. Or where they can figure out where the other places are. People are not from the state. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, we're not getting very good reception online, so I don't know if that would help to speak closer to those mics or if they can adjust something.
Okay.
Is that microphone on?
We'll check the mic might have a low volume set. You can hear me okay, right?
Yes,
you
Mr.
did.
Mayor.
Really the owl that's picking up whatever they hear?
Hey, it doesn't look like other audience comments. So that takes us down to unfinished business, city addressing.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I move to direct the city manager to disregard the established addressing policy and have the addresses on Eac Drive and South 2nd Street revert to their previous addresses.
the move, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Yeah, moved and seconded, Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, I think, you know, when we embarked on this all those years ago, I thought the goal was to not just standardized, but to give addresses to all the places that didn't have addresses. That was my main concern and my main reason for supporting this entire effort. You know, I appreciate all the work that went into this and that staff has done, but I do agree with the petitioners that, or the public comment that we've heard that, you know, if it's not broke, why fix it? So, I think that leaving, you know, the 4% that needed to be swapped and then standardizing the other 96% of the community, I think it's still pretty good. And we can pat ourselves on the back for addressing all the addresses that didn't have addresses. So I think that we should just leave it as is.
Thank you, Councilmember Rainey.
I actually was gonna go for number 5 because I do believe that the SLU spots need to have addresses assigned to them. But, my problem is with the 6.5 mile addressing. In 2011, the city assigned those addresses to those folks. In 2012, the city council came up with a policy. For some reason, there wasn't communication between the planning and the city council about what had been done at 6.5 mile. If it would have been addressed, it could have been dealt with a year into them having their addresses, but it wasn't. So now 12 years later, we're trying to fix a mistake that the city made, and I don't think they should be held responsible for those costs. The insurance concern is a real concern. If you change your address right now, since COVID, insurance companies are not easily found for rural communities. And if you change anything at all in your policy, you'll be dropped. I'm dealing with that myself. So address changes, it's a real and possible danger for folks to lose insurance on warehouse buildings. I think we need to spend more time and energy making sure all those homes have their addresses posted at the end of the drive. Not necessarily even on the house, but the end of the drive, so folks coming into EAC Drive can see what they are, but I see no reason why we need to be flip-flopping numbers. They're fine out there, they have addresses that that go with the policy, they were assigned by the city, and I think it's just it's not a good idea to have them switch right now, and I think it's added expense that they shouldn't have to go through. So as long as they have addresses, I don't see a problem of changing them. The SLU on EAC, on 2nd Street, they do need to have addresses. So I was gonna go with option 5, but I seconded Kenny's motion to get a discussion going.
Thank you. Councilmember Carpenter.
Sure. I do think, yes, given, I mean, as we've talked about with the history of this issue, the city made a mistake. And so if we are asking folks to change their address, one thing I thought of is, do we make a lump sum payment? Is it $500? I mean, I know that's a big ticket item. I don't know how else to say, you know, we're asking you to make this change because of a mistake we made, but you have to do it on your dime. So that is really tough. I am curious about how people are gonna deal with selling their homes ultimately. I mean, if you try to sell your home, a new buyer is gonna need to get insurance. So at some point, when these homes change hands, there's gonna need to be insurance. So that issue isn't going away, right?
No, but that's their problem with an address anywhere. These folks are changing an address, that change, they lose the current insurance they have and it's dropped. A new person buying the property is gonna have to deal with that anyway, but why do they have to deal with it? They're already insured and
I'm just
they're
saying it's an issue that's going to have to be dealt with.
right.
You know, and so I don't know that necessarily is going to hold up this, is, I guess what I was thinking, and then shipping address, we all deal with that, you know, everybody has ordered stuff online and have, you know, we can't validate this address, whatever it is, street address, post office box. So I don't know if that's necessarily, I think the big thing is emergency response. You know, can people find the home where the emergency is? And then the criteria that we talked about or that were mentioned in code, and I don't remember the exact words, but predictable, unique, consistent. This won't be consistent, it might be predictable. If we're relying on plat maps, because we're saying the E911, something happens with the electric, you know, GPS system or whatever, then those plat maps have to be updated regularly when properties change hands. So that's just something to be mindful of. So I don't have a specific, I haven't come down on one side of this or the other, but I do see, it just is a tough issue either way, so that's what I'm wrestling with. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kinsman.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is great to see public support. I'll just say that. Thank you. Thanks for Mrs. Songer, and hopefully you guys can hear me. Thank you for doing your research and homework on this. I appreciate that. There is city planner Kevin in the room.
He is. You want to come up together?
I do. I actually have a question for him. I just want to clear up the addressing on South. What is that? South Second Street, because currently they have addressing down there. Is that correct, Kevin? It's a half, but it's an address, correct? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So they do have addresses that, and there's, with the current half system, are there empty lots that would possibly need to be readjusted? Because that's what I'm concerned about. If there's an empty lot, then anything down for that may need to be adjusted. Yes, no, I just don't know how many lots are down there.
Three lots, so unless we continued with the half system, there is not enough room between the existing addresses to insert new addresses.
Yeah. Are those, I guess, what's the status of those? Are they private held? Are they public held? Are they not even open? They could be open in the future.
They're all privately held.
Okay. And those privately owned lots on the slough, do they have half addresses or no? Some do, some don't.
The lots on the slough that are currently developed have half addresses.
Yeah. If there was further development on the slough side, you're saying there wouldn't be enough half addresses to cover those? Is that, I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly.
No, if we wanted to use whole numbers, there would not be enough because the existing addresses above them, there's no space in between. So
okay.
Addressing could continue with the half addresses on the slope.
Okay, so if we continue with half addressing that section, I mean, it is a small section, doesn't need to be corrected. If we're able to use a half address, that area doesn't need to be changed. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, it would just be having appropriate signage.
Okay. And does our current policy have verbiage for how those need to be addressed? Is it if it's more than 50 feet, it needs to be at the point of access, I guess? Is that what I was reading?
They would have to have a sign, they would have to have the address letters or the numbers on their house themselves. And then also there would need to be a sign at the road, wherever their access point is for the trail down below.
Okay. Is there I mean, I know when I was reading through the policy, it seems a little bit and possibly vague, maybe vague by design. Is there an opportunity to maybe have a more standardized format for what that signage should be? I know it's set on a post or on and I don't have it right in front of me, but a post or a sign or something. I would like to see some kind of standard because we're going to run into this either way at EAC Drive, because there's some that are clear setback and some that aren't, and I'm just concerned that we'll have someone who has a very visible sign and someone that has something on a tree. So
there is the code's actually very prescriptive about what is required. It talks about not only letter size, but the height of the sign, the direction that the letters or numbers have to go, whether it's vertical or horizontal based on how the sign is. So yeah, I think the code covers it pretty well.
Okay, so then, but that's policy, right, or code?
That is code.
Okay, thank you. Going back to that, I just have a question on enforcement. Are you the sole source of enforcement on what these letterings and addressing looks like?
The fire department will be taking the lead on enforcement. Our plan is that once tonight's meeting is wrapped up and the 31st comes and goes, and I have a chance to make any modifications that I've gotten calls about, then I will finalize the addresses the first or second week of February. Those will then be submitted to the post office, and other agencies. And then the fire department will begin an education campaign, which we will also depend on the city council to be heavily involved in to help us get the word out. We plan on giving people about 3 months or so to get their properties properly addressed. And then after that, we will take a second look at the city, see where we're still not seeing compliance. We'll then contact those people directly to work with them to get the signage up. And then if there is still failure to get signage up, the code does allow for fines if necessary.
Is it, and you're more versed in this, that's what I'm gonna ask you, is it defined in there what that fine would be?
Up to $1,000.
Okay.
It's not listed as, for this specific code section, some code sections have fines that are associated specifically with them with an amount. This one does not, so it falls into the more general code enforcement catch-all, which just allows for an up to $1,000 fine.
One time?
Not to exceed $1,000.
Okay. Thank you for, I know I have a lot of questions. Thank you for clarifying on that. Going back to the piece of which side of the street gets odd and which side of the street gets even. What is the process if the code was changed, honestly, to align with what Joan had recommended? What is that policy? I know this policy was in part created because we stood up a team to review this whole policy and addressing in 2011, 2012. Is that correct? With anyone who has some legacy knowledge?
Yeah, this was presented side by side with the ordinance that's found in code related to addressing. So this was then used as the guide for administering that code section. And basically, I guess my opinion is that if the council decides that we should leave these areas of town as they are, then the rest of the city and these areas, everyone will have addresses. And then we could leave the policy as written, so any new streets built in the future could then continue to follow this existing policy. So then we would then have 96% of the town still following the standard that is everywhere else.
So just to clarify, so we wouldn't have to change code, and we could, for the sake of having something in the written record, incorporate a reference to this action in the policy.
Yeah, I can put a footnote or something in the policy document.
The code doesn't,
And I just want a point of clarification there. Where it is housed, I guess, this piece that says on this side of the street it's odd and on this side of the street it's even, that is in the policy, not in the code, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And policy then that's a staff point to change. If we were going to change policy, that's directing staff to change policy, correct? You would then go back, review it, change it if needed. I just want to know the process. I'm not saying that's what I'm recommending here. I'm just for clarification, since we're going back to code and back to policy and kind of interchanging between two when they're really two different things. They feed each other, but they are two different processes, I should say.
In this situation, the council would need to direct the city manager to have the policy modified.
Okay. In your opinion, if EAC Drive is left as is, does that need to be called out in the policy or anywhere that this place is grandfathered in? What does that look like?
I would end up updating the policy, whether directed or not, to include a footnote if we do decide to keep the addresses as is, just so that there is a record of this, so there isn't confusion in the future.
Yeah. And then I know I have asked the questions generally about when the addressing took place. I actually have some similar sentiment to Councilmember Rainey on. I probably would not be a very happy person if I was not so distantly issued an address. Could have been addressed soon, could have been corrected, excuse me. Let me watch what I'm saying there. Could have been corrected sooner. And now again, 12 years later, we're trying to clean up, which is great. We're following policy. I do appreciate that. This has probably brought up a more broader picture of the importance of following policy that we have so that we're not trying to correct it again, a decade or more later. So, thank you. I know I took a lot of time, but I really appreciate you answering questions there and clarifying. That has helped me and hopefully others.
Thank you, Councilor. Treasurer.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is a toughie. The data person, is this on? The data person in me wants to get it like all cleaned up and have it, you know, since we're doing it, we might as well do it right and just take care of it now. And it's also hard to argue against the insights that were provided to us by our emergency response professionals. But with that said, you know, out at EAC, those numbers are standardized out there. They're ordered, they're consistent, predictable in that area. And I do, you know, change would be disruptive. I was thinking of supporting the number 5 one of keeping it out at EAC, EAC Drive, just because it is consistent and standardized. And that was an error on the part of the city. So yeah, that's where I was, on 2nd Street, yeah, that one, I feel like they should have the standardized addressing in the city.
Councilor Baylor.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple comments here is the term grandfathered in seems to be used a lot. And I can tell you in the building trades, the grandfathered in, sometimes you can leave the building the way it is, but as soon as you make some changes, you are no longer grandfathered in. So that's not something you throw around like this is a forever thing just because of the way it was. That's the way it always has to be. So that's one thing. As far as the city making a mistake, that's the discussion going on there for a number of years ago for addressing. That happens. I know of cases where not this city, but cities have issued building permits and the builder actually built the home and it was found that was against code and they had to literally tear it down just because the city gave them a permit, it was in error. So those things do happen and they have to get corrected. The idea of having your numbers on the different sides of the road is not so the emergency personnel, policemen, there's the domestic violence situation, there's an emergency seconds count. It's not that he's going to drive down and look at the plat. It's the idea is he can turn onto that street. He has the address. He knows what side of the road it's going to be on, and he knows what block or how distant it's going. The first address he grabs, he knows in sequential numbers where that house is going to be. There's none of this. Let me pull up my plat. Was this the one that was the anomaly was on the left side or the right side? So I tend to agree with staff on page 2, the second paragraph, where they said this decision to change was address location was not taken lightly. All of those people that are doing our emergency responders, this is what they want. Another council looked at this is what they agreed to. Another planning and zoning commission, this is what they agreed to. So I tend to go with this, and I guess I should say, I don't know, maybe it's perceived conflict of interest or not, but I am going to have to change one of my addresses, and I don't have a problem with that. The insurance company doesn't have a problem with it. It's just going to have to be done, and it's going to take a couple hours, but we'll get her done. So I would have gone for number 1. I would not support the motion that's currently on the table.
Thank you, Councilor Sherman.
You don't want it to be your turn. Well, I guess I'll follow with Councilman Baylor. I don't know if it's gonna be a conflict of interest, but I also have to change my address. I'm happy to change my address. I'm happy to have an address. I was in favor of motion number one. I was willing to follow all the policy in place. And the staff's recommendations and EMS's recommendations, as a Forest Service and Park Service employee, I've changed my address numerous times. I'm not sure about the insurance question. That's something new to me. I've never had an issue with it. And Coast Guard families have to change their addresses all the time. I guess I'm confused about that a little bit. I've already started changing my address and it's not been a problem. I like the fact that we're going to be consistent. And I don't like data, but I am happy that we will be consistent. I feel that when you make exceptions, it always comes back to bite you. And I've seen that happen in the city numerous times. And yes, I'm not gonna say there was a mistake made in 2011 when addressing was given out, but the policy wasn't established till 2012, but I'm going to be in favor of the recommendations of the staff and the EMS folks. And I personally am not having the difficulties changing my address, so I am going to be in favor of supporting another motion, not this one.
Hey, anybody want around two? So the motion on the floor, I think is number 4. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Do we have any emergency staff in the audience? I just can't see. No.
So.
No, okay. And that's just kind of going back to some, I guess. I see the written comment that was put in here. I've also heard some contradicting comments of it, you know, with it's very specific to E911. As long as there's a standardized address, excuse me, it will work just fine. I mean, I know that's, and there's policy question here, and then there's E911 question. So that's, if there was someone in here, I would have asked them a point of clarification, which is it. What I have is written, and that's their written statement. So that does carry weight. If that's, I don't want to be the reason that, even if it's a 1% chance that it will never happen, but I would be, I don't know that I could be comfortable being the reason that someone didn't respond to an emergency. I mean, that's what it would be, because the addressing wasn't standardized. So, I mean, that's, again, just curious who's in the audience. So thank you.
Strictly for E911, it doesn't even have to be standardized. It just has to be unique. So.
And I see that, but I also see what was presented from our emergency responders and saying that this is what they would like. So, okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Yeah, I just, I mean, I had my say, I'm definitely gonna support the motion that's on the table, but I did want to acknowledge the work that Kevin and Paul Tremblay did. I mean, this was started in 2012. I appreciate the fact that you're getting it done. Sorry to put the delay out there, but again, I think, you know, we're here because we were, well, I wasn't, but everybody was voted into these seats to speak for the community, and that's all the community. That's not 90% of the community, that's everybody, and this is a problem for community members, and I think we don't have to make it a problem for community members, and that's a pretty easy statement for me.
Okay, ready to vote? You vote? Oh, it is
Clarify, so the amendment, I mean, the motion is to,
item number 4. Option 4.
I'm gonna do a roll call, okay? So the motion is, I move to direct the city manager to disregard the established addressing policy and have the addresses on Ant Drive and South Second Street revert to their previous addresses. On that motion, Kathy Sherman,
No.
Ann Schaefer,
No,
Casey Kinsman,
Sorry, I'm pausing. No.
Kristen Carpenter,
no,
Tom Baylor,
No,
Wendy Rainey,
Yes,
Ken Jones.
Yes.
Motion fails 2-5.
Anybody else have a motion?
yeah, I'll make a motion, but get my page back up. I guess I would move to go to option, on page 2 there, number 1. I move to concur with staff's decision to change the addressing along EAC Drive and South Second Street based on established city policy.
Okay.
We'll move to the seconded, Councilman Baylor.
Yeah, I think I've already stated my reasons.
Councilman Sherman?
I'm too in favor of this. I have 0 problems with readdressing South Second Street and dealing with the SLU properties. I believe EAC Drive is a larger group, but I don't believe we should be making exceptions.
Councilman Carpenter?
I mean, I agree, I think that was the first thing I thought of, either do we make an exception here, or do we try to implement the policy as it was written, and it's a real struggle for me, it's a struggle, yeah, I'm still not.
Councilmember Kinsman?
I'm gonna go back to staff and our emergency responders. If that's what they want, I don't want to be any kind of reason why this doesn't work out in the future. With that, this is gonna be, if this is passed, either way, whatever passes, I am putting my confidence in our city staff by, I think it's not unfair to say, this time next year, that whichever process we go, there's clear addressing, not just at EAC Drive, but throughout our community. So I look forward to seeing that campaign and supporting and helping in any way I can with that, even if that means I'm out there with the tape measure. So thank you.
I won't be supporting this motion. I think this is just gonna create more, issues. Yeah, Drive. I think, you know, as a first responder, as a past first responder, I need a sign. Whether it's on the left-hand side or the right side of the road, I just need a sign posted at the end of the drive and on the main thoroughfare. And so, I don't know, I think we're opening a can of worms we don't need to open on this one. I won't be supporting this.
Councilmember Schaefer?
yeah, I'm also, in support of, the addressing correctly the South Second Street, but I'm still in support of the option number 5 to let EAC Drive keep their addresses. I think the whole point of this was to get those unique addressing for the E911 system, which is still accomplished, it's still consistent, it's still standardized and predictable in that area, so I'm not in support of the motion.
Councilmember Jones?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Rainey's comments. I think it's quite deplorable to say we're gonna fine people $1,000 because the city made a mistake 12 years ago. I think it's authoritarian. I think it's despicable. I think people in Cordova need to remember this when it comes to the time to vote in March and vote people out who are treading on it. So I'm gonna not support this at all.
Everybody's had one round yet. Anybody want to have two? A roll call again, Susan?
So this is on motion one on page 2. I move to concur with staff's decision to change the addresses along EF Drive and South Second Street based on established city policy. Casey Kinsman,
Yes.
Wendy Rainey,
No.
Ann Schaefer,
No.
Ken Jones,
No,
Kristen Carpenter,
No.
Tom Baylor,
Yes,
Kathy Sherman.
Yes.
Motion fails 3-4.
Do I hear a motion for number 5?
I'll move for number 5.
I'll second it.
Okay, Councilmember Schaefer,
You know, further comment.
Councilmember Rainey,
No further comment.
Councilmember Sherman.
Just gonna reiterate, making exceptions is hard. And nobody on my street is going to fight against this, but
Councilmember Carpenter,
Yeah, I don't have any further comments.
Councilmember Baylor.
yeah, I guess for me, it's just disappointing that I know I don't care if there was past members, the current members of our emergency response request this. They have good reasoning to request this. I agree with their reasoning, so that's why I was disappointed with number 1. So, yeah, that's all. I'm going with staff on this one. I think they're correct. And I don't see a big issue of, there's just a little bit of paperwork involved and we can move forward.
Kevin, did you have some?
Just wanted to clarify my comments, or maybe I misunderstood Councilmember Jones's comment, but the fine isn't associated with the change of address. It's if you don't put your address on your property so that the first responders can't find you. It's a safety issue if we can't find where your property is. So I just wanted to clarify that, unless I misunderstood.
Councilmember Kinsman, did you go this round yet?
Which round are we on again?
Number 5.
Right. Yeah, I a lot of yeah, just going back to, I guess, what echoing somewhat Councilmember Baylor said, that is our recommendation of staff and our emergency responders, and that's fine if we have been previously emergency responders. Again, I used last week that I was an emergency responder, and when someone said a name, that didn't mean anything to me. I'm former military, and I know the importance of a standard, and that's what I trained to, and that's what I followed. That was a standard, and that standard, in my experience, now this is a little bit different, that standard saved lives. So, thank you.
Jones?
you know, I understood fully what you were saying. Maybe I didn't speak properly, but finding somebody if they don't put on a new address is authoritarianism. You're taking somebody's labor, their money, through threat of force, using the fire department. I just don't agree with it. It's asinine to me that some of these people have lived here longer than I've been alive, and there's exact houses with those exact addresses. I'm not gonna sit here and tell them that they have to change it, they have to lose their insurance, they have to, I'm not gonna do that, so I'm gonna, I don't know, I guess I'll vote against this one, or I prefer the original motion I made. Maybe I'll vote for this one because it at least maybe it's a camp drive, so maybe it's a compromise.
Everybody get a chance there? Think so? Okay, can you do the roll on, or number 5?
Yes, on motion, this is motion 5 on page 2, I move to direct the city manager to disregard the established addressing policy and have addresses on Eac Drive referred to their previous addresses. On that motion, Ken Jones,
Yes.
Wendy Rainey,
Yes.
Ann Schaefer,
Yes,
Kathy Sherman,
No,
Casey Kinsman,
And I'll go with the spirit of compromise, I guess, here, but yes, I'll vote yes on this.
Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Tom Baylor.
No,
Motion carries 5-2.
Okay, thank you. Compromise isn't always easy, but, government is here for the people, and anything we can do to not make it worse, is what we're here for. So moving on to new business, resolution 01-2404, a resolution of the council of the city of Cordova, Alaska, authorizing the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Uniac Environmental to complete the EPA mandated lead service line inventory.
So moved.
second,
Councilmember Carpenter.
This is an issue that Councilmember Sherman brought up, oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Wendy, yeah, right, I think at our last meeting and the city manager, city manager, did some research and prepared, a report for us, and so this is helping us, get into compliance with the state, water system regulation, so I think I'm in favor of supporting our need to be in compliance.
Councilmember Schaefer.
yeah, I would support this. No further.
Councilmember Sherman.
yeah, I think if we've all been listening to public radio the last 2 weeks, we have heard about this and other communities in our state and how they're dealing with it. And it is pretty, incredible to be reporting all this by April of 2024. But, also, I think this is just an important step that we need to take to comply, and I'm in favor of it.
Councilmember Rainey.
I appreciate that there's a grant to pay for this program. I'm all in favor of it with the grant funding coming back to the city, and I appreciate the city manager moving quickly with this and getting things going so we can hopefully make that deadline.
Councilmember Jones.
Yeah, I'll support it.
Councilmember Baylor.
yeah, support it.
Councilmember Kinsman.
I'll support it. Thank you, staff, on putting this together. I guess we get this consultant, I guess this is probably a question for city manager. We get this consultant, what's our scope for the consultation, and then what does that look like moving forward? I don't know if you have those answers to that, but I would appreciate a little more insight. I am supporting, this is my knowledge, and hopefully anyone who's listening, a little clarification.
I'm not sure what you mean by scope of consultation. You mean the scope of work?
Sorry, the scope of work for this contractor, my apologies, like for this that we're voting on, they're going to consult us on this process. Sorry, go ahead.
They're gonna come in, so the April 24th deadline is for your preliminary survey to help weed out, for lack of a better word, by the date of the lead line law. So that this is the lead line inventory, the actual, and we will do some ground truthing, but April 24th, that part is due. This initial survey. So they'll go through tax records, they'll go through building permits. you know, whatever, however they can find dates and associated with them, and then we'll pick some areas that we need to go and do some actual on-the-ground survey by April 24th. That is due. The state says, yay, good, move forward, then we'll do the actual on-the-ground inventory, and then the final one is October. And then the final one, if there is remediation that has to be required, we can apply for another grant to actually fix if we end up there.
So from now till April 24th, are some community members potentially gonna have someone knocking on their door, wanting to come and see what their main water distribution connection looks like? I just want people to potentially be aware of that. I mean,
If it did happen, it would happen late in towards April, because then we'd be moving into basically the second phase, where we have to confirm, like if your house was built in 1989 or 1990, the potential lead service lines are there. And so those may have to have some some actual physical verification as mandated by EPA.
so, and again, I'm only saying this so for the public's knowledge that they could, and potentially at the end of April and going on to the second phase, have someone come and knock on their door and want to come look at their pipes. And this is a positive thing. This is something that, and I want to make sure I'm, giving correct information out to the public too, that, hey, if someone comes and knocks on your door, they want to come look at it. This is what they're trying to accomplish. The next phase of this is to hopefully get your pipes that aren't healthy replaced with grant money. Am I understanding that correctly? Potentially.
Yeah, we would probably notify before we knocked on their door. We would have some kind of system in place to get phone calls, emails.
Absolutely. If they receive correspondence in any way, this is what it's for. And for me to properly address that as I start getting questions, what does this mean? I just want to know what the big scope of this. Now, from a personal standpoint, sure wish this came out a couple years ago, as I just changed out the lead pipes in my own house. So
that's good to know, though. I should let the people at the contractor know that their house in the street.
And well, and I'll say that's not my main into my house. I tried working with the city on that. That's a different conversation. It was fully dug up and could have been replaced. But hopefully there's some grant money to dig it all up again. Thank you.
Councilmember Baylor?
No, I'm good.
Everybody have a chance? Anybody want round two? Okay, all those in favor of resolution 01-2404, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? Carries. Resolution 01-2405, a resolution of the council of the city of Cordova, Alaska, renaming Elmer's Point Drive as Kimmick Way in honor of and to show respect to a great Cordova.
Don't move.
Second.
Seconded, Councilmember Rainey.
Yeah, I saw the letter from 2006 with the residents, the landowners at the point, in agreement with this, and working for UPS, we've run into some issues with multiple addresses for the same spot coming in. And since it looks like this was something they all wanted at that time, I move that we grant that and clean it up as we move forward with addresses.
Shaker.
I have two questions. The first is, in our E91 addressing, has it been included as Kimmick Way?
It's on hold until after this decision's made.
Okay.
Everyone on the street's been notified that we're doing this tonight, and they had a chance to reach out if they had any comments. Most of the people who signed this letter still live there, so.
My second question is, has the public process of changing this road name already happened? Like, did that all happen back in 2006?
There
like public
wasn't a
hearings?
public process at the time, and I think that's kind of where this. I don't know how to say, basically got mixed up. you know, the mix-up happened because there wasn't an established process at the time. Now, when the addressing code was passed in 2012, that included a process for renaming streets, which didn't exist at this time. So now we're, you know, quasi taking it through that process just to make it official, so it's in the resolution book. Because when I was told about this letter, unfortunately, I was told that it was done in 2007. So I looked at every resolution from 2007 to 2012 and didn't find anything. And luckily, this letter was unearthed. And so now we just want to get it in the books where we go to look for things and, yeah.
Do we not have to go through that public process though with the public hearing or?
We're saying that since it was done properly in 2006, we just want to clean it up now and get it in the book. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm smart.
Councilmember Jones,
No problem.
Councilmember Baylor,
I'm good with it.
Councilmember Kinsman,
Yeah, I appreciate all the information. I can support this. Looks great. Thank you, staff.
Councilmember Carpenter,
I have no comment.
Councilmember Sherman.
I'm in support.
Okay, all those in favor of resolution 01-24-05, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to audience participation. You can speak on any item on the agenda or not.
My name is Joan Sonker at 140 Yan Drive. I just want to thank council, and I guess I'm kind of surprised that it wasn't unanimous. In that, I hope everyone got the chance to read Hillary Palmer's letter or email that she sent to me. I think Susan gave it to you, but it just, you know, she's someone from outside that has dealt with this, and I just thought her comments were great, and I can see Kathy and Tom Baylor, you guys said you like, you know, you like things to be an established way, and she said she had to fight herself with trying to fix data. But her motto was first do no harm, and I just appreciate council and your vote in supporting letting us keep our addresses. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
The old bones. John Hopkins, 250 EAC Drive. Oh, boy, it's Carson. I got a chuckle. I mean, it's really crazy. You know, you spend all this time and money on trying to do whatever you think you're doing. I'd rather you fix the potholes. I'd rather you plowed our road. You know, I pay taxes. You know, you gotta really get your priorities straightened out. You know, it's just sad, you know, to sit here and argue about, you know, all these different things. Well, changing our address, you know, I don't care if we change our addresses or not. You know, just try to be responsible. Try to think about, you know, what the priorities are. And they certainly aren't. If you would have got that right in the first place, it's gonna cost us money. It's gonna cost us money to go through this, and you've already paid people to put in those numbers, and now you're gonna pay people to change it. So what does that mean to me as a taxpayer? Are my taxes gonna go up? Thank you for the time, folks.
Thank you. Oh.
Christy Wilson at 220 Yak Drive. I just want to thank you all for the consideration tonight and for listening to us. And
Live here.
Your jobs aren't easy,
I live here.
but thanks again.
Thank you. Any other audience comments?
So I take it that South Second is getting changed. Is that right? We're losing our address.
For the vote tonight, yes.
Okay, but I don't think you understand that it's gonna be an EMS nightmare. Those addresses aren't even on the street. How are they gonna find them? Give them a half number. I was an EMT here. That's not gonna be very efficient. I'm sure you're gonna find out that soon enough.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move along to council comments then. Councilor Carpenter?
Um, I just appreciate the discussion that we can have as a group and hashing through all that, and it helps me a lot, I think, to hear from other people and so, yeah, thank you for that discussion about the addressing system, and thank you for staff for the time that you put into that. I know that, it's just not an easy decision. We try to be consistent. We're trying to make decisions for the whole community, 100%, not just the 4%, and it's a challenge. So anyway, thanks to everyone, and forward to learning about our water pipes. Thanks.
Councilmember Sherman?
Well, this has not been a fun 2 weeks. I really appreciate having an audience, and although I know you think I didn't listen to you, I did. I have great regard for staff recommendations as a former city employee, and, I voted my conscience, and I want everyone to understand that I too am having my address changed. So I voted the way I felt I needed to vote. So I hope we can all live peacefully together. And I really hope people will continue to come and listen and be in the audience and pay attention to what's on the council's agenda, because it does help to hear from people, whether it's here or whether it's on the street or through phone calls or emails, whatever. It's nice to be able to hear when you're serving this position, and it is a very difficult position. And I will be happy when I'm turned out.
There is another position open. Nobody has put in yet.
Yes, there is.
We have until February 5th to put in for that other position. So, Councilman Schaefer?
It's my seat that's open. Please submit your name to run. Yeah, I also really appreciated the discussion within council, the public input, and also the input from staff expertise. It was, yeah, it's not a black and white issue. It's tough, and but it is nice having people here and giving feedback. So yeah, please stay involved. And
Thank you. Councilman Rainey?
I do take a lot of stock in staff recommendations, and I appreciate Kevin and Paul Trombley and all the work that the department did on this. I also listened to community members who reached out to me, and I appreciate that. My address is changing. And I did not ask for an exemption for us. And I feel that when you have a large part of the community that's been wronged, that we need to right that, and that's why I voted the way that I voted. I voted my conscience. And I appreciate you guys all coming down tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kinsman.
All right, thanks everyone for the conversation. Again, I think I spoke some similar comments last week. It's great having a audience participation. And if you don't like what we're doing on council, please run. Okay, there's open seats, there's open positions. That is the beautiful thing about it. You get to do that. And I really hope to see so many more people on maybe some less controversial topics and just come out and see what we do every day. And then again, if you don't like that, please put your name in the hat and let the city decide if they want to elect you or not. So, but thank you for the audience participation. I know I was, I guess, the one in the spirit of compromise on this one. At the end of the day, I didn't feel it was necessary to, what's the term, fall on my sword over this one. So, and now leave that alone. Thanks, guys.
Baylor.
Just a second, I gotta pull my sword out. You know, this is why we have 7 people. You want to have a healthy debate. You want to weigh the facts and opinions, and as long as we keep it respectable, what can I say the word, to each other, stick to the facts. And in the end, you have a vote, and if it goes your way, good. If it doesn't go your way, you support it, and we move on to the next thing. That's the way the process works. So I'm glad we had it, and staff will figure it out, and we'll move forward. So thanks for everybody for showing up.
Reverend Jones.
No comment. I've spoken enough already.
Just a point of clarification, I guess, for staff. Do we need to direct the changing of that policy, or that's just a given?
Staff policy, it's a given.
Okay, we're good. Okay, we do have an executive session this evening. So we'll take a 5-minute break, clear the room, get whoever back online that we need to get back online, and we'll.
You said, it's the same link, you guys.
Can we just do the motion?
Yeah, go ahead and do the motion.
Mayor Ellison,
Yes.
I move council goes into this executive session for the purpose of discussion on city manager's contract, a matter of the immediate knowledge which would clearly have an adverse effect upon the finances of the city.
Second.
Move to second, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, we'll go into executive session then.
So do you want us to go out and come back